Hello, everyone. Welcome to another one of the Wednesday sessions hosted by Medicine Talk and joined by wonderful speakers. So we just had a wonderful retreat hosted in the Karuna Center and co-organized with the Ministry of Nirvana. And at the retreat, we had wonderful volunteers. We had Tina who facilitated and everyone coming together. It was such a joyful occasion. And that was where I experienced so much joy. And I hope I'm coming to you today with a lot of that joy in my heart. And I hope that in this session, we can also share that joy and cultivate that joy in our hearts as we listen to this Dharma. Because it's not every person who gets to listen to the Dharma, and not every person who gets to share the Dharma and be in the presence of spiritual friends. So with that in mind, I introduced our session today. It's called A Bright Heart in Dark Days with Ayya Yeshe today, who's joined us. So context is we live in a troubled times. Our lives often have dark days. The world isn't always so bright. So how can we make a more livable world? How can we bring this bright heart with us in some of those dark days? So a little bit about our speaker today. Ayya is a nun of 22 years and is the Abbess of Bodhicitta Dakini Monastery, Tasmania. Ayya travels internationally to teach, is published by Harper Collins, and a socially engaged Buddhist and a sacred chants artist. Ayya also founded Bodhicitta Foundation, which is a charity empowering women and children in India. Ayya belongs to the Mahayana Forest Tradition. So as always, this will be an interactive session. Ayya will start with a meditation and introduction to the topic, and then I'll jump in to facilitate a bit of a conversation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in, pop them in the chat, or you can also put your hand up and unmute yourself. If you don't feel comfortable sharing them with everyone, you can also send the questions anonymously to me. So this session will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube. Without further ado, over to you, Ayya.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am sitting in my car with a solar light, so please forgive me if things just, are a little bit haphazard, but that's okay. So I believe you start with meditation. So let's get comfortable and just close your eyes and just become aware of your breath coming in and out of your nose. From the time we're children, society encourages us to always look outwards. And, the time we spend looking inwards is actually very limited. So this time, it's good to be really conscious that we just keep bringing back our mind to the object of meditation, which is the breath. Just observe, is the breath deep or shallow, fast or slow? So inevitably, some thoughts will come, but just let them pass and always return to the breath. Training the mind, it's a bit like training an impatient puppy. You just have to teach it to sit. It will wander away, but just bring it back. A lifetime of distraction is not so quickly overcome. And now just feel a sense of unconditional love and warm acceptance for yourself. As if the sun is in your heart, there is this beautiful golden energy flowing through you of unconditional warmth and self-acceptance. And know that even if you're not perfect, you have the seeds to become the person you aspire to be. So quietly, silently say to yourself as you feel this warm energy flowing through you, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful and at ease, may I be filled with loving kindness and compassion. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be filled with loving kindness and compassion. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. You can even imagine yourself as a child sitting on your own lap if that's easier for you. Just contemplate this for a few minutes, because sometimes the hardest kind of love is for ourselves, and we're really down on ourselves. We're not good enough. Where, we haven't achieved the things we hope we would. We don't have a gym body, whatever it is that makes us feel down on ourselves. But often the people that are down on us are people who are trying to play into our insecurities to sell us stuff or make us feel incomplete. But as a child, you knew how to run over mountains in delight. You knew, that the present moment was enough, and you had this sense of uncomplicated joy, and you were very present to all the miracles of life that are unfolding in the present moment. So you have that capacity in you. May I be well in all my imperfection, and with the perfection, the potential for awakening I have within me, the good things I've done, and the good things I can still do, my awakened potential. May I be well and happy, peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. Feel that warmth and that good energy flowing through you. You are complete. And think of someone close to you who has given you a lot of kindness. Doesn't matter if they're alive or dead. Maybe your mother, your father, your grandparents, a teacher at school, your own children, or a childhood pet. Probably the most kind person, the most loving person. Not a romantic partner, just because that's more complicated. Just think of the many acts of kindness they did for you as a child. How their love saved you, how much they gave of themselves. If it was a mother, the pain she went through to give birth to you, the endless lunches she made for school, how she basically didn't sleep properly for about 10 years, how she aged, just always thinking, are you okay? Worrying about you when you're a teenager. How our parents often worked in jobs they didn't like to support us. And how they put aside some of their own dreams and hopes to make our lives good. Whatever it is, that how our connection, the the values they instilled in us that are of use years later, or if it's your own children, how they really taught you what it is to love and give selflessly. It is a blessing to have known such love. So send them the blessings of your life, share the goodness and the sense of gratitude. Because if you are alive, somebody cared for you, somebody kept you alive when you were absolutely helpless. And that is a great gift, even if they're not perfect. So share your blessings, all the things you're grateful for. The fact that you can see a beautiful sunrise is because somebody gave you a body, somebody formed your body with their own body. Love is always there, even if we don't see it, because we always want it to be on our terms, but love is always there. May you be well and happy, peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. May you be well and happy, peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. May you be well and happy, peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. Feeling that good energy, that golden energy flowing through you to them. Seeing them seated in front of you with a look of happiness on their face. I'm so grateful for everything you've given me, all your selfless giving. I never thought about it until now. But I am because you were. May you be well and happy, peaceful and at ease, filled with loving kindness and compassion. I share with you my merit, the good things I've done in my life. And then to everyone, everywhere, especially the people in the room with you, the people that, who are part of your life, who are living under your roof, who are living in your apartment building, the people in your neighborhood. According to Buddhism, everybody has been our mother, our best friend, our child. And even if you don't believe that, everything we have comes from others. The house we live in, the fact that we can read and write our own name because someone taught us, the skills we have, the money we earn, the roads we drive on, the clothes we wear that keep us warm in winter, the food we eat was grown by farmers, the cars we drive were made by factory workers. None of us is an island. All of us are interdependent. Everybody has made our existence possible. So may all beings find meaning and peace and wisdom and think of benefiting each other. Bhavantu sappa mangalam rakhantu sappa devata sappa bhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Okay, so just coming out of that meditation now, back into the virtual room. Okay. So I can't see all of you. I'm really glad maybe Sophia turned me on because I think I muted myself. So I'm not sure how much of that meditation you got, but anyway. Yeah. So, so today is the topic is a bright heart in dark days. But I would just be curious, if anybody has got a topic thread or a kind of a short question that they would like me to include in this class, so-called class teaching, just put up your hand or put it in the chat box. Because, you know, I live in a remote monastery and I don't exactly know what, I mean, I read the news, but I don't know what the average person is thinking or feeling, you know, as much as I used to when I lived in the city. I know things are getting harder, you know, the cost of, oh, awesome. The cost of living is getting very high. I know that. And a lot of people feel anxious about climate change and just the state of the world. It's a very different world post-COVID. And, you know, there's loneliness and isolation and, you know, all kinds of things. I mean, I know that it's not all bad. There's still a lot of good things. But has anyone got anything they've been wondering about or dying to ask a monk or a nun, or, you know, before I start? What is the antidote to despair? Oh, that is a really good and appropriate to this topic. Yes, that's a good question. I ask myself. Okay, we'll try and keep that in mind. Anything else before I start? Okay. Some slightly reserved people here, obviously. Anyway, okay, so, I mean, it's interesting, like, I've been a nun a long time, and, you know, you always give this kind of general Dharma talk, like finding peace in, okay, why more Buddhists don't promote being vegan, okay? Yeah, it's a talk that we often give, you know, finding peace, the thought that this too shall pass is the antidote. Yeah, we give this talk called Finding Peace in Troubled Times. So for 20 years, we've been saying we live in troubled times, okay? But when I look back now on the 90s, I look at them as a kind of these golden days where, you know, young people could pay rent and there was enough housing for everybody, and university didn't put you in debt for 20 years, and, you know, just there was just like climate change was kind of on the distant horizon, you know, and there was just a lot more hope and optimism and connection as well, I think. Anyway, I think now things are like much more challenging, and especially young people, I think, are right to be feeling a bit kind of jaded, you know, a bit kind of like they haven't been given a great deal. Yeah, so to me, I've had an interesting life in terms of I was a street kid, and then I lived in India for 17 years. I lived 10 years in an Indian slum. So I guess you could say that I've seen the dark side of life, and I've seen what, you know, the violence, and I've seen the best and worst of humanity. In India is a really interesting place to live. It's like life with the volume buttoned on maximum, but it's broken and you can't turn it down. It's like really in your face, you know? And that's why in central India, and that's why people either hate it or they love it, and they just, it's like they keep going back because it's the place where they feel most alive, basically. It's like a beautiful woman that treats you badly, but you can't forget her. So it's interesting, you know, that I actually often felt more happy in times where external things were really challenging, because I think it made me want to be a better person. When things were, maybe it's a trauma response as well, but when everybody around me was struggling to survive, it put my compassion, you know, it turned it up. And it really gave me a purpose for living, in the sense that, I started a charity to help women and children, and I found by creating altruistic activity and building community, or what Martin Luther King would call beloved community, and what the Buddha called Kalyana Mitra, noble friendship, friendship based on noble principles, based on spiritual growth, based on altruistic activity. And building that was my antidote to the dark times we live in, and it was my, it's like, don't, when things are really, like when it's a very dark place, the little light you burn, it burns even brighter, right? In a place where there's so much light, if you turn on a torch, it really doesn't make a difference. But if you're in a very dark place and you light a candle, it really makes a difference, So the times in my life where I felt most happy were often when I was in a very challenging circumstance, but I was able to turn it around with compassion. And to me, that compassion and the Bodhisattva ideal of seeking awakening, not just for myself, but for out of recognition that I am in a sacred, interconnected relationship with all of life. That gave me a sense of armor and resilience, that I was able to deal with great adversity with a happy mind. And there's a really interesting psychologist called, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten his name. He was in a, Viktor Frankl, that's it. Yeah. He was in, like in the Holocaust, he was in a German concentration camp, and he saw, daily terrible atrocities. But he, and he survived, and his wife didn't survive. And after the war, he could have been really full of hate and bitterness, and just never recover from all the horrible things he'd seen, and have no faith in the goodness of humanity. But he, how he survived was by trying to find meaning. And he said, if you have meaning, you will be able to survive almost anything, because you'll build endurance. He said, don't just seek happiness, seek meaning. If you have meaning, happiness will follow as a after effect of that. Because just seeking pleasure, just seeking short-term happiness, then you're not going to be very, you're not going to have a lot of fortitude. You're not going to have a lot of strength of character, because you haven't, you're just seeking something easy, and you're seeking a quick result and a quick, shallow, short-term sensory pleasure, input. And it's interesting, like often the people, we see these famous people that die of drug overdoses, and you think they have so much, and why aren't they happy, and why do they die prematurely? But it's often because they have so much money and they have so many things that they can do, but they just feel bored by it. They feel unsatisfied by it, and they're like, and there's like a more sense of disappointment, because I have all these things, but I'm still not happy. Whereas sometimes people who have very little and manage to survive, it's like they know what gratitude is. They know how to live simply, and there's not a lot of things in their life that are unnecessary. They invest in each other. Like when I've taken some toys from an op shop in Australia, and I've given them to Indian kids, they don't play with them. They play with each other. They go around the neighborhood like a little tribe, and every door is open to them, and they just play with each other, And if they have something like a bicycle, they'll share it. They know the joy of, like, they're part of each other's life. And I feel like this emptiness we feel and this scarcity. And the reason why we struggle is because we don't have community networks, and our marriages are breaking down. We don't know how to deeply listen to each other. We don't know how to love it. Like, we have really unrealistic ideas about romantic love. We think that our romantic partner will be everything for us, as if we don't need a village, and we put all our hope in one person. Like, it's a huge amount of pressure you need to make me happy. Can't even make myself happy. How can I be responsible for someone else's happiness as well? No wonder 50% of marriages are failing, because no one can bear the burden of that tremendous expectation that you're going to be my everything. Actually, what we need is to diversify our friendships and our relationships. Not every like one relationship doesn't give you everything, right? You have different friends for different things. But unfortunately, it's also a case that we are time poor. So in the old days, like when things were slower, in analog days, when I was a child, we had more time, to speak to each other, and things went slower. And I think these days things are quicker, but the quality of our relating is less deep, you know. So to establish a meaningful life these days is actually, and to not be constantly distracted, requires more conscious effort and discipline to really simplify your life and, plant seeds of friendship and community and meaning and altruism. Because and to be Buddhist, the Buddha said, is to go against the stream, in the sense that the world is going towards distraction and greed and, temporary pleasure, whereas Buddhists are seeking a way of peace and mindfulness and simplicity. The world is seeking pleasure and distraction and sensation and accumulation and self-centeredness, whereas Buddhism points us towards simplicity and letting go of that which is not meaningful, not liberating, not peace, not wisdom. So it's like the way the world is going and the way the spiritual path is going is two separate directions. So it takes, and this is why we need not just our own practice, but a teacher and a community. Just like an alcoholic needs Alcoholics Anonymous, samsaraholics, or those addicted to distraction, to the deadly weapons of greed, hatred, and delusion, need to go cold turkey and seek spiritual friendship with like-minded people. And of course, even the people in the Sangha can be disappointing. They're not perfect. They're there because they're suffering. So don't have massive expectations of them. But just recognize that in their own imperfect way, they too are seeking an end to suffering. And try not to put your agenda, your way of seeing on someone else, because someone else has not walked the road you have walked. No two people are the same. And therefore, the way someone will practice, the way they will live their life, their political beliefs, their way of processing emotions will be different. And when we live and let live and understand, people are different, they've walked a different road, we're more tolerant, and we can see that people are the result of social, economic, and spiritual and cultural conditions. When a plant is dying, you don't blame the plant. You look for the conditions of the plant. Does it have enough water? Does it have good soil? Does it have good compost? What does it need to get that good balance? So likewise, when you look at your own life and when you look at the lives of the others and the world, don't be so judgmental. Understand what is creating this suffering. For example, why is there crime? Often there's crime because there is, like welfare isn't enough to live on anymore. there's homelessness, because of poverty, because of mental health issues, because of drug addiction. Like, if you look at the bigger picture, these intersecting issues, then you'll see that people are not just inherently bad, they're a product of their environment. So by, changing the social, economic, cultural, spiritual environment and conditions, and dealing with childhood trauma as well, and helping people who are ready, not people who are not interested, like, look at their own mind and manage their own emotions. This is all good ways to begin to deal with inner dysfunction and the suffering of the world, as well. And it's a big and messy job, and maybe more than one person in one lifetime. It's like where we just do what we can do in our corner of the world, but if everybody did that, the world would be a much better place. So I know that, more conservative and mainstream Buddhists than me will say things like, just fix your own mind and forget the world. The world can't be saved, basically. Turn away from the world. The world is on fire. All the dharmas are on fire. But I am a bleeding heart, soft-hearted Mahayanist who says that, though the world has always been a mess, and will continue to be a mess, those people are our brothers and sisters. And as long as space remains, as long as there are those who suffer, may I too remain to remove the darkness of the world. And people would say, oh my God, like, why would you undertake such a burdensome task as this Bodhisattva path? Because I and others inter-are. Happiness isn't just a personal matter, it is a communal matter. Like I said before, others are my second self. Everything I have, including this human body, comes from others. In the suttas, it says, our mothers, even one lifetime, and often our mothers are our mothers in many lifetimes. They say the amount of bodies that our mothers have given up and the lifetimes they've devoted to us would be like higher than Mount Everest, and the tears they've shed for us would fill the oceans of the world. The devotedness. Even animals will die protecting their children, right? So if you think about it, our very existence and our continued existence, everything, like, you just don't think about it when you put on a jacket in the cold winter air. You don't think a woman in Bangladesh made this. Thank you, sister. And when you turn on a light, you don't say, thank you, people who invented electricity. You don't think, thank you, coal mine workers. When you get in your car, you don't think, thank you, Korean factory workers. Or when you look at your phone, you don't think, thank you, people who work at wherever your phone is from. But we're living in a world where everything is compartmentalized. But actually, we need to zoom out and see the effect of our actions, and what is the speed that human beings are meant to go at, and how does nature, like, we're changing the world quicker than nature can adapt. The planet can't adapt, and we're taking too much, and we don't see we're disconnected. We're disconnected from our own goodness, and we're disconnected from each other. And therefore, we need to fill this disconnection, this loneliness, this heart sickness with things rather than each other, with distraction rather than wisdom. But, more, like, is not always more. We're just stuffing ourselves so full of distraction that we feel empty inside, almost sick, and that is why, like asking yourself, if I was to die today, am I living in such a way that compassion and wisdom are possible? Am I living in such a way, like if I got a diagnosis and someone told me you've got cancer, you've got only a few years to live? Am I living in such a way that I feel what I most, that I, that I'm happy with my life and what I've done with my life? Is there stuff that I haven't, that I want to do that I haven't done? Am I living in a way that deeply reflects what I most deeply value? And it doesn't mean that, you can have everything you want or you have to make drastic changes. It may just be a mental shift in terms of a sense of gratitude, because each of us is living on borrowed time, and all the things we think that are ours, we're really just people living in a hotel. It's all borrowed. We don't own a piece of land or a house. We just live in it for a while. We're just the caretaker until impermanence has her way with us and we go the way of the autumn leaves. We are no different from the autumn leaves. We're just have a slightly longer lifespan. But, ultimately we will have to leave behind everything, and we're, I don't know, so self-absorbed. Like there's this kind of, I don't know, wellness influencers, and they're like, I think it's called something like selective selfishness or strategic selfishness. But I don't think that these people practicing this kind of thing are actually healthy or happy. I think they're really unhappy. Actually, like the people I know in the slum that babysit each other's kids and stop and ask each other, how are you? Nobody in India dies alone and they smell the body and they have to come and get it after a month. Everybody is part of each other's life. And that can be really hard because you can't hide anything. But I think it's also healthy and human. And maybe, part of our, I'm just looking at the time, part of our approach to fixing the world or fixing ourselves should be this kind of radical acceptance, in the sense that things are never going to be perfect. They haven't been through history. It's always going to be messy. We have deluded beings, like a person who runs a preschool or a nursing home kind of has this humorous approach to, like, these people are a bit crazy, but I'm going to love them anyway. That should be that's the Bodhisattva approach to life. Like, human beings are kind of crazy and I shouldn't take them too seriously because they're not in their right mind. They're under the influence of greed, hatred, and delusion, and they think that this illusion, these things they've invested in, this self-clinging, this obsession with their thoughts and with their, their purpose and their, what does it all mean, and their existence, um, you know, we shouldn't take it too seriously, basically, and we shouldn't take what other people do. I mean, we should listen and validate people's emotions and care and take responsibility and all of that, but we should also be aware that people aren't quite in their right mind and they're a little bit crazy. And when you don't have this high judgmental perspective, and you can take it with a bit of a sense of humor, then you get a bit more lighthearted. Like, our universe is just one of many universes, right? We're on a tiny rock floating through space, and we just live for a blip, a flash of time. So, you know, and everything runs in a cycle as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of terrible things happening, but there's also a sense that this is just a minute in eternity. And what we can do, we should do. Whether that's protesting to protect the environment, lobby our government, whether that's volunteering at a soup kitchen or advocating for community housing or Habitat for Humanity, whatever makes us feel that we've done the best we could to create a better world for those who will follow us after us for 7 generations? Have we lived in such a way that we're thinking about those who will come after us? The way we consume, what we invest in, the leaders we elect, the way we relate to each other, all of these things. But the individual definitely has limited capacity. And that's where obviously, the practice of liberation comes in, because the world is complex and unenlightened beings are never going to make the best decisions. So we have to also liberate our own mind and start with that inner practice of peace, of, when you go deep in retreat and you get into the jhanas, you get into blissful states of concentration, and you start to see that so much of our mind we're not even using, then you start to have a less, you take everything with a much more light heart. And you see that people are just, it's like they're a millionaire. They've got a treasure buried under their house, but they're going everywhere out every morning begging because they don't understand their own wealth, their own value, their own capacity for joy and freedom. They're looking everywhere for validation and love and understanding and acceptance. What the things people do for love and acceptance are crazy, like paying thousands of dollars to have someone suck the fat off your body, or, inject you with a chemical that freezes your face. Like the crazy length that people will go to be loved and validated. Even they join a hate group, like I've heard people that joined hate groups, like white supremacist groups, they said the acceptance and the love was next level. Like, in obviously not for the people you hated, but the people that you were united, and like the crazy stuff people do to just get love and acceptance. Imagine if you could just turn within and find that peace, and you didn't have to like go to some crazy lengths to make yourself look like a leopard or freeze your face or pay someone to suck off the fat, you know. And when you purify your mind, when you find this level of peace, you find that um, you're able to hold space for your own suffering better, and therefore you're able to hold space for the suffering of others better as well. You're less impatient with others, and you start working through your own trauma, your own issues. I don't think that meditation and mindfulness fix everything. If you have mental health issues or if you have economic issues, um, and those systemic issues need to be dealt with in a systemic, practical, worldly way. Like someone could be a great meditator, but it's not going to change the fact that when they go outside their door, they still face racism, or whatever it is. We need to deal with those issues in the context of where they're arising. So, in terms of, making a better world and feeling a sense of hope, I feel that compassion and radical acceptance are the antidote to these things. And the 10 perfections which we find in Theravada are, first of all, generosity, dana, which is giving dharma, giving material things, giving freedom from fear. So also supporting, giving people who are fleeing oppression safe harbor. And then the second one is morality, which would be keeping the 5 precepts: don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, no sexual misconduct, protecting children from sexual abuse, and so on, no alcohol and intoxicants, and then renunciation. So obviously for a layperson, that might mean living a more simple life and not taking more than you need, doing a job that is ethical, doesn't harm anyone. And then the next one is wisdom, which is understanding interbeing. And then number 5 is energy, which is practicing with joy, with enthusiasm, practicing meditation, going on retreat, but also bringing your mind back to the present moment. And when unwholesome states of mind arise, letting them go and cultivating the opposite of that. So, for example, if you're feeling a lot of resentment and jealousy, thinking about creating good conditions for your own practice and rejoicing in others' good fortune. If you're feeling a lot of aversion, cultivating patience and loving kindness. If you're feeling a lot of lethargy, mental sinking, make sure you have enough rest and a healthy lifestyle, but also, contemplate impermanence and interbeing, interconnectedness. And then after energy is patience. You're going to need a lot of patience with, people on Dharma committees and people at work, people in families. Patience to keep practicing when things get difficult, because inevitably we have a lull in our practice where it's not so joyful. There's not a lot of bliss. We don't go to work and expect a check on the first day. We get a check at the end of the week. And likewise with our meditations, we practice for a while, and it's only after a few weeks that we start to get good results, or months, right? So we turn up every day and we meditate, and then the good results come after a while. So we need patience when things are not so easy. And this is where equanimity and resilience are so useful, patience. If you understand that there is a lot of suffering in samsara, and that short-term happiness isn't the purpose of life, you also develop a lot of patience and resilience to go deeper, to dig deeper. And then the next one is truth, because understanding, we're impermanent and that our actions have results. These are very not easy things to face, like really understanding I could die anytime, and that I live in a complex net of interpenetration of, my actions impacting others and others' actions impacting me. So living with good intentions and really watching, observing your actions. And then resolution, which is a commitment to living mindfully and living with awakening as much as possible. Always returning to your breath, to the present moment, whatever you're doing. When you eat your breakfast, just eat your breakfast. When you chop vegetables, just chop vegetables. When you work on the computer, just work on the computer, not trying to do 100 things at once. And then metta, which I'm sure you all know about, loving kindness, goodwill, understanding that others feel just as you feel. And then finally, equanimity, which is, it's not apathy, it's not caring, but it's an impartial, altruistic kind of caring, which is not just for the people that you like, but for everybody. You see everybody has a fundamental value. And it's also this long-term view of like, okay, things might be bad now, but they will also change in future. And understanding that good actions, good, a good battle, it's a long-term thing. It's a marathon. Serving all beings and fighting for good conditions and justice and a better world is a long-term vision. Just think of all the stuff that Gandhi or the Dalai Lama or Martin Luther King, all the things they went through, all the campaigns they went through before they had some good results, and the hardships and injustice they face on a daily basis. It's not just a case that they wrote a speech and became famous and some good things happened. These people were formed out of tremendous hardship. And so you take those problems, those difficult times, as the conditions to polish the diamond of your Buddha nature. Without these things, you wouldn't have the chance to practice patience, to practice the perfections, to practice bodhicitta, to grow spiritually, to purify your karma. So take it like a warrior takes adverse conditions as a training to, to progress on the path of awakening, like the warrior that sharpens their sword, waiting for the battle. That you take these adverse conditions as your path to awakening. Because if we didn't have suffering, if we didn't have adverse conditionings, we wouldn't be seeking liberation, and we wouldn't have realized that there is something better. You know, we wouldn't be seeking peace if we were already perfectly happy. And maybe it is due to these conditions that we've taken up the spiritual path. There's actually a Tibetan teaching which is called mind training, and it says, you know, thanks to thankless people, I've realized the precious dharma. Thanks to bad karma, I have I've sought the path to liberation. Thanks to sickness and death, I now seek the deathless. So take it like the warrior who is ready, sharpening his sword, ready to go into the throngs of battle. You know, take it as, I'm a spiritual warrior and this is my path of awakening. May I have the courage to face this battle with dignity, and to live in such a way that compassion is possible, and that I leave the world better than I came to it, and that I keep lighting lights in dark places. And that, you know, the love I show for others, I also show that love and care for myself as well. So that's probably enough. How we're going? Yeah, it's so do you guys have any questions or comments, things you want to discuss? Oops, I can't see you all, so I'll let Sophia go. Yeah.
Thank you, Aya. That was a beautiful talk. I feel like you speak poems. We say beautiful imageries that now I've forgotten, but yeah, like in the moment, it was very, very beautiful. And you've touched on a lot of beautiful Buddhist concepts too as you speak with these imageries. So that's really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, So I'm just jumping. Yeah, we have someone in the comments section that's also commented. So beautiful. Thank you. Um, I guess perhaps we can start with some of the questions people posed earlier in this chat. And then if you have any other questions, please feel free to put that in the chat box or put your hand up in this Zoom and unmute yourself. Is that all right? I always start with some of the questions from earlier this
Sure.
chat.
Yeah.
So I guess we have John asking, what's the antidote to despair at this state of the world?
I think I addressed that, right?
Yeah,
Take these challenges as your path to growth, but also remember self-care, and remember to take some time away from the battle as well, because it's tiring and it's hard to not burn out. Because for people who are soft-hearted, um, there are so many things that could take up their attention as well.
Mm.
Yeah. So someone said, tell me more about your work in India. So I started a charity for, well, I went to visit the so-called ex-untouchable, the people from the lowest caste in central India who converted to Buddhism in the 50s to escape the Hindu caste system. And I, at first, you know, everybody was asking me to bless their baby and chant. And one day somebody put a dying baby in my arms and just said, pray for her. And I just realized, you know, this baby has diarrhea. With a $2 pill, I could fix this. You know, this baby doesn't need my prayers. This baby needs my action. What Mahayanas would call upaya, skillful means. And you can't teach people spiritual things when their stomach is empty. So that's why I just started making posts on Facebook and trying to raise money for these people, because very few people know about them or are helping them, and they're one of the poorest Buddhist communities in the world. So you know, now it's been going about 15 years, and we have a girls' home. We have 4 slum schools, 3 hours a day, because the quality of the public schools is pretty bad. We make 7,000 meals per year. We have a women's job training center in sewing, computers, um, English and beauty therapy, because it's a big money maker for Indian weddings. So India is not all just poverty and misery. There's so much history and beauty and diversity there. And, you know, these people are motivated to help themselves as well. Actually, in terms of environmentally, one of the best things you can do is sponsor a girl to go to school, because that means she'll have children later, and it, you know, it has a huge follow-on effect for the world. Yeah. So, okay, please give us details of the monastery. You mean in Australia, right? What does it say? I read that someone is looking to start a monastery within 15K of Sydney. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So for 20 years, I tried to start a monastery in Australia, but I couldn't afford. I couldn't. I was homeless really for a long time. That's part of why I stayed in India, because I couldn't afford to live in Australia. And there, I ordained with 15 people, and only 2 of us are left. We have an 85% disrobing rate in Tibetan Buddhism, and there is not a lot of support for Western nuns. So that's why I went to India actually originally. I'm very fortunate now. After 20 years, I managed to save enough money to buy a 38-acre property in Tasmania, and it's 1 hour from Launceston. And it's really beautiful. It's got some cabins, so people are always welcome to visit. Sometimes I do think about, you know, moving back to the mainland. You know, I'm like, why aren't more people coming down here? Like, I offer a temporary ordination program and so forth. And it's a good place for retreat. It's just a little far away. But I think with climate change and with everything that's coming, maybe Tasmania might be a good place to be, and more people will migrate down here, you know, and visitors are always welcome. So that's what I've got going on. Yes. So what about our other questions?
Well, we're just waiting for Sophia to come with the other questions. I've posted into the chat some information about the Bodhicitta Foundation, and that's the charity that I was just talking about in India. So if you'd like to support the charity, you can check out that website and you can go there, including donation details as well.
We're also having a fundraising dinner on the 22nd of September. And we really do need, so far we have only 1 person booked, and we really do need help. So if you're interested, you can just message me, look at our website. Yeah, on my Facebook page, Ayya Yeshe, there'll be details there. It's a really yummy Indian food at a restaurant in Roselle. There'll be, yeah, if you look on my Facebook page, or maybe I'll just give Tina a link. You could really do with some people. And I'll be in teaching at the Buddhist Library and some other places next month. I'll be on tour in Sydney if you want to come to any of those. So that would be a great way. Plus, like, donations to the charity are tax deductible. So if you want to sponsor a child, you know, the cost of 2 cappuccinos a week can absolutely change a life. So that's a good way to, you know, yeah.
Thanks, Aya. So I'm just going to post into the chat the Facebook link, as well as also the Eventbrite link to the event directly. So I hope everyone can support this really amazing charity dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds awesome. Like, amazing what you're doing in India, and setting up a monastery in Tasmania and having your own land. I feel so happy for you that you now have a space to live. I remember seeing you first at Mitra conference. At the time, you were definitely trying to build a monastery, and it was not easy. So I feel very happy for you that now you have your own space and you feel settled, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and really great to hear that the charity's doing well too and supporting so many girls every year. I mean, girl and, you know, the caste system often, you know, not on their side. So it's wonderful someone's sort of fighting for them. I guess I have a question. So I would encourage everyone to, I guess, think about this topic, and if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I had a question, Ayya, which is about skillful means. So I guess that's a big practice in the Mahayana tradition. I guess a big point. And when you said, people can't practice Buddhism when they have an empty stomach, that is the first time I've heard about it explained in this way, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. Do you mind sort of talking a bit more about the skillful means in Mahayana Buddhism?
Upaya. Yeah. I mean, the perfections that I just mentioned there, people say the Buddha didn't teach the Bodhisattva path, that it's a historical add-on, but actually in the Pali Canon, he's referred to as the Bodhisattva. And the 10 perfections or paramis that I just mentioned are found in the Pali Canon. So the Bodhisattva path is mentioned in the Pali Canon. It's just not emphasized because it's considered a very difficult path and it takes longer. But actually the fact that the Buddha's teachings have lasted as long as they have is because he spent many lifetimes accumulating a lot of good karma and paramis to have the karma necessary to become a fully awakened Buddha. I mean, I think upaya is understanding, responding to people's needs, like understanding compassion is flexible and responding to people's needs rather than your judgment, so yeah, I mean, for example, there's a lot of Christians that will go and try and help people on the street, but their own conservative or moralistic views might be an obstacle for that. It, rather than judging the people, getting down on their level and not making them feel that you're like not doing it out of ego, but being humble and just consulting the people involved and asking what they need, basically, and when you empathize and have compassion and get down on someone's level, like I did, I stayed with those people 6 months before I actually started a charity, and I asked them what they wanted and what they needed, and I understood cultural sensitivity and and then did a bit of research and just kind of understood. I was properly informed, so I created something based around empowering women, and because women put 90% of their earnings back into their family, whereas men only put 60% in India. So and yeah, women need jobs they can do from home in India. So like computers or sewing or beauty therapy, something they can do part-time as they watch their kids, and starting with children so that you're getting them before they get caught up in the whole child marriage, endless cycle of poverty, having kids they can't afford kind of thing. You're trying to break the cycle from the very beginning. So it's basically just empathy and talking to people and getting on their level to empower them, rather than coming at them from your own agenda, which is really important. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like, it's so easy to assume that everybody sees the world the way you do. And I remember, as a teenager thinking that, like, I would hear something like, I would hear like people talking about racism, and I would think, aren't we post-racism? Haven't we overcome that? And then later on just realizing, like, me as a white person was so uninformed because I was assuming that everybody was like me, and then when you realize actually everybody has a different experience and you need to listen in order to understand. And part of compassion is having empathy for people who are not like you, understanding, listening deeply in order to understand. Yeah, and taking action based on proper information. Yeah. So I think that's what upaya, skillful means, is about. It's about proper dialogue and being properly informed, and then taking action based on that, according to the situation, the need of the situation. And upaya, skillful means, is how the Dharma has changed in every culture that it's visited. Like Chinese Buddhism is very different to Sri Lankan Buddhism. So the teachings of awakening change and adapt, and even Western Buddhism is quite different to Thai Buddhism. You know, it adapts to the situation and the time and the people. But
Yeah.
the flavor of liberation is maintained.
And what do you think that flavor of liberation is? That is that stays the same or needs to stay the same across all the different.
Shila Samadhi Prajna, ethics, concentration and wisdom, and the fourfold Sangha, lay women, laymen, monks and nuns, beloved community, mutual respect, all of those things. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you would love to hear more about your experience in India and how that process, I guess, inspired to start the charity. You touched a bit on it, but I feel like there might be more to the story.
That's like up of dhammatalk.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 million people died during COVID. Yes, Umesh, I speak bad Hindi. Yeah, 4 million people, hello, Sin. 4 million people died in India, according to a Washington think tank, even though the government says it was only 400,000. And yeah, India invests less in public health care than the world's poorest country, which is Burundi. 22% of Indian women are married below the age of 18. 40,000 children die every day due to poverty-related illness like diarrhea. 55 million girl children are still waiting to go to school. A very authoritarian government has taken over in India, and attacks on minorities like Christians, Muslims, women have gone up by 20% at least. They're like, even journalists are afraid to speak freely. People have been assassinated just for saying things the government didn't like. So there's a lot going on in India, and India is now the world's largest country. So one in every 5 people in the world is Indian. So actually, making sure something good is going on in that country is a good thing for the whole world, to be honest. And to be honest, our Indian charity is not doing that well because people here are financially suffering. A lot of our regular sponsors have given up. So we are actually struggling. Like, we're just a grassroots charity, and a lot of charities have reported a decrease in donations. I mean, just like $5 can feed 2 kids. $20 can feed 10 kids. So that's a lot. And just if you can't afford to make a donation, just spreading, Bodhicitta Foundation has Instagram, Facebook, and you can share our posts and spread the word about, share our videos. We've got a YouTube channel, Bodhicitta Foundation on YouTube. So all of those things can help us reach a larger platform. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, India
absolutely.
is incredible. Just in the sense, I've learned so much from India in the sense of they love monks and nuns there. They love community. They invest in community, and they're quite community minded. In fact, when you ask a woman, "Who are you?" she'll be like, speaking. Her sense of self is her family, her children, her husband, not just herself. And I find that's a really fulfilling way to live, even though it can be hard as well, because sometimes women don't get to fully develop their own personality and identity. I just think the way we're living in the West is like we've gone too far the other extreme in individualism, and we could do with a bit more community. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, definitely we'll check out the foundation. Grassroots charities like this does a lot of impacts at the local level, but it's harder to get funds. And so thank you for setting it up and sharing it with us and doing what you can and really trying to understand what the community needs, not just giving them what you think they need. I think we have a question from the audience. So the question is, for those who don't know, so can you please explain what bodhicitta is? How can we bring up and sustain our bodhicitta?
I mean, that's also a big topic. I would
Yeah.
encourage you to Google like a YouTube teaching on bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means the wish to become a Buddha to free all beings from suffering. So it's the core of the Mahayana path and ethos. But it's basically, you realize, like, if I take my mother on a cruise ship, she'll be happy for a month and then she'll just be back to her normal life. So that doesn't really liberate her. How can I free all beings permanently and completely? And that is by realizing the path of Dharma. So how do I do that? I have to become a Buddha, because only a Buddha knows exactly how to reach different people in different ways. And therefore you follow the path of the paramis and, devote yourself to meditation and ethics and so on, and purify your mind and become a Buddha in this life or in future lives. That's the 5-minute version of bodhicitta. But bodhicitta, it sounds hard, but it actually, like, every day with bodhicitta, this boundless love and compassion for all beings, gives you a sense of joy and strength. And like Bhante Sujato, who is my mentor, he once said to me, like, you live in an Indian slum for 10 years. How could you do that? I couldn't do that. And for me, it was that bodhicitta that really gives me, it's the reason I get up in the morning. It gives me so much strength to know, to help others is just such a privilege. And like, to repay the kindness of my mother's is such a joy. It's such a wonderful way to live. It's like being in love, but on a much broader scale, basically. So yeah, what could be better than having a life filled with love and service, But you have to do it according to your capabilities. You might start in a small way and then you grow over time. You don't want to overextend yourself immediately, like suddenly declare you're donating your house to the Red Cross or something. Yeah, one we say, by many drops is a pot filled. But it's a meditation as well. There's a systematic way that we develop bodhicitta. We expand our compassion and we contemplate the kindness of the mother through the 7-point cause and effect meditation on bodhicitta, on repaying our mother's kindness, or otherwise the method of exchanging self for others. And both of these can be found just by Googling. Pema Chodron, Tubchen Chodron have written a lot on this. The Dalai Lama has written a lot on this. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful, like having this boundless love that supports you and drives you in going through the most difficult situations to support all beings. And as we all know, like, to be able to care deeply about others, you are touched by others' suffering, but you also need to sustain your own self and not be crushed by the suffering. So we do have a question from the audience. How do we care for those who are suffering and not be affected by all the suffering that we're exposed to?
Yeah. So that's why I said, build equanimity and do small actions to begin with. But most importantly, start with a calm abiding meditation, develop concentration, have yearly retreats, do exercise, take care of your mental health, go to therapy, and gradually build yourself up, because if you're in crisis, you can't be a refuge for others, right? So then over time, as you develop these mental qualities of bodhicitta and you practice the perfections, you purify your mind, your self-obsession and your ego diminish, and there is more space for others. But this is a process of months and years. And even it's interesting, like, there is an analogy. The Theravada approaches the Dharma like uprooting a poisonous tree, which is the, self-clinging and ignorance. And the Mahayana approach is to take a big tree, and we recognize it's poisonous, but we recognize it also has shade to give coolness to others. So we build a big fence around it, and we say, beware, poisonous tree, but enjoy the shade. So as a bodhisattva, we're still a bit messed up. We're not perfect, but we can still offer a bit of service and shade to others while we're doing the work of uprooting our own negative delusions. And then the Vajrayana approach is to take the poisonous thing and turn it into medicine, like a bit of something that becomes a vaccine, an antidote, like the Philosopher's Stone or something like that. But that's a whole different thing.
So I just had a question in my mind. I have a question about Bodhisattva, right? Because in Mahayana traditions, there's Guanyin, Tara, all those bodhisattvas, so is the idea they're not yet enlightened, but they're very close. So they could be enlightened, but they choose not to because they remain in the world. So do they still experience suffering, or like you said, they're like sort of encompassed by all the love in the world, that even though they're still in this world, they no longer suffer in the same way that we do?
I think both. I think there is 10 bhumis, 10 stages of the Bodhisattva path. And there are people who have aspirational bodhicitta, which is just normal people who aspire to seek the path of liberation for the benefit of all beings, but they're still pretty messed up. And they definitely make mistakes. And then there are people who are like, once you've realized emptiness and you don't have self-grasping anymore, then your capacity to benefit others is unimpeded. And it's not the case that people just, they're like masochists, like, give me some misery, I'm practicing the Bodhisattva path. That's a very Catholic mindset, so beware of the ex-Catholic mindset. I'm guilty of that. I grew up Catholic. Like, oh, suffering with me. Actually, the attitude is, I'm willing to stay here and work for the liberation of all beings, but I also realize I'm not very useful to all beings if I'm not fully liberated, so there's nothing selfish about going on retreat, or buying yourself a chocolate bar sometimes, or caring for yourself, paying your rent, not being homeless. Like, all of those basic things are just common sense. But the thing is, addressing this self-cherishing, this always obsessing about myself first, and not understanding that I am a relative dependent arising self, independence upon non-self elements, and understanding that by taking care of myself, I take care of others, and by taking care of others, I take care of myself. So it's more of a kind of deeply spiritual, wise way of working for our own liberation. And I really see this sense of moderation in I've seen it in Asia, in the sense that the monks and nuns are fed. They're not like starving themselves to take care of others. And they take time to rest, and they close the monastery gate, but they open the monastery gate every morning as well. So these troubled people come to the monastery, and everybody is very kind to them. But then there's the rains retreat where nobody come, like only people who are offering food come, and they take some time for themselves. So it's very middle path, no extreme in Asia. It's very well balanced and well designed, and it's not the case that monks and nuns are just going off on their own all the time. There's a lot of community activity, and then there is also time alone. There's both. Whereas in the West, we tend to be very extreme, one or the other. Like one day I'm a bodhisattva, and the next day I'm just fallen off the wagon. So we need to be a bit more moderate, and understand, that middle path. So somebody said, could we save the world by buying less and taking a plant-based diet? It's true, the animal consumption and factory farming is a big polluter. Yes. And probably also, you know, fast fashion is a big culprit as well. So, and as is fossil fuels, you know, so yeah, all of those things. Yeah, I'm very concerned how homelessness has just become normalized and how huge corporations have just increased the price of our food by 30% and none of us are doing anything about it. We're just like, whatever you say, big brother. That disturbs me a great deal. So all of those things. And I think, you know, you just have to pick your issue as well. You know, you can't do every issue. Yeah. So probably we should wrap up, hey?
Yeah, we just have one comment from Eugene. He said, I think one significant way we could help many beings practice compassion and reduce climate change is opposing and buying as little as we can from the animal milk, egg, and meat industries, all of which involve horrific animal cruelty, suffering for abattoir workers, consume lots of natural resources, and are largely / completely unnecessary with modern knowledge of nutrition and access to plant-based nutrients. For example, Challenge 22 offers free support to go vegan from registered dietitians and mentors. That's amazing. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Eugene. Very awesome. Challenge 22.
So do you need to make any announcements, Sophia, or Meta Center?
Yeah, so thank you very much for this wonderful talk. Yeah, just the knowledge about Buddhism, but also just your own journey and setting up the charity in India, and yeah, like everything you talked about, the Bodhicitta, the Bodhisattva path, very inspiring. And yeah, so really appreciate coming to share that with us today. I think, would you mind doing like a bit of a prayer or sharing of merits before we close up for some yeah.
Mm. May we quickly realize all things to be no more substantial than the dream fabric of the night, and instantly awaken to perceive the pure wisdom display and the arising of every phenomena. My friends will become nothing, my foes will become nothing, I too will become nothing. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever is past will not be seen again. The Buddhas neither wash ill deeds away with water nor remove beings' sufferings with their hands. Beings are released through the teachings of the truth, the final reality. I will liberate those not liberated, release those not released, and place living beings in nirvana. Thus, by the virtue of all that I have done, may the pain of all living beings be cleared away.
Thank you so much, Aya. Yeah, so would you like to make some announcements of your own before we do the Meta Center announcement?
So I think Tina put the links for the dinner on the 22nd. We could really do with some support for that. And if you just go to Ayya Yeshe on Facebook, you'll see the tour I'm doing in Sydney. So thank you so much. And also you'll see posts from the Indian charity. Yeah, and the work we do.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Aya. All the links are in the chat, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And a bit of the Meta Center announcements. So next Wednesday, we have Bante Joe joining us to talk about practicing the Buddhist teachings from the suttas to the heart. And also, special announcement, next week onward, we will be moving to Western Sydney University. You know, Meta Center want to go into the community, like very aligned with what I talked about today. Skillful means sharing the Dharma, going to the community to share with the people. And so we partnering with Western Sydney University and using their venue to do the medicine talks. Tina, did you want to talk a bit about that? Our little move to the Western Sydney University?
Yeah, sure. So as you all may know, Western Sydney is a big uni and they've got a number of campuses. So the campus that we will actually be going to is the one that is in Bankstown. So it's very close to the train station. You can walk over there and you can also park nearby in the street and also at the shopping centre as well. And we will be level 4. It's one of the nice swanky classrooms where everything works in terms of technology because I've gone and checked it. So you can still come in by Zoom, or of course you can also attend in person. And the intention is to still have this beautiful community that we have, but also invite the students into that faith as well. So I really look forward to seeing you either in person at the Western Sydney University campus or online as usual. So that's every Wednesday night. That is still same time, same place. I'll also be doing a few meditation classes for complete beginners because the students want to learn about that. So my first class will be on the 4th of September and that will go for 3 weeks. After that, oh, and also of course we've got yoga as well on Tuesday. So Monday meditation, yoga Tuesday, and Wednesday is talks. And we have of course the Metta Convention coming up on the 25th of September to the 1st of October. It's a 1-week full program and it's completely free. So the talks are free, the yoga's free, meditation's free, because of course the Dhamma is priceless. So I really hope that you can all participate. The program for the Metta Convention is also on our website, including the 2-day conference, full days on the weekend, and also dinner as well. So we've got food coming from a number of places. We've got food from different cultures, and we're going to basically be able to see maybe about 500 people. So I'd love to see you all there and have a lovely time together. We also have a 9-day retreat coming up as well. We just had a retreat, as Sophia said earlier, and I can't wait for our next retreat. And that's going to be on the 4th of November until the 12th of November. Now, I know that for some people you may need to work. So with Bhante Ananda, who will be leading the retreat, and Bhante Mesananda, Bhante Nanda has given us permission to allow those who need to work for you to come on the weekends only. So you can come on the opening weekend, you practice when you go back home, and then you come back at the closing of the retreat. So hopefully you will be able to join in that retreat. We are flying these monks in from overseas, from Canada and America. They are beautiful, beautiful people, and I really hope to share that time with you. Okay, so enough announcements from me, and see you all soon. And thank you so much, Ayya Yeshe, again for your presence here with all of us today, but importantly, all the work that you have done and continue to do for the community. So I wish you all the best over there in Tassie, but also when you come over to Sydney for your fundraising. Thank you.
Thank
See you,
you.
everyone.
Take care.